Lesson 9. Blanket Stitch. The blanket stitch, also known as the buttonhole stitch, is a versatile and decorative stitch often used to finish the edges of blankets, hence its name. This stitch is also popular in various embroidery projects for creating decorative borders and attaching appliques. Also, this stitch is widely used in floral embroidery. You can create flowers or leaves using the blanket stitch. Consistent spacing and stitch length are crucial for a neat appearance. Maintain even tension to ensure the stitches lie flat and the loops are uniform. Avoid pulling too tightly to prevent puckering. Now you can see the difference. When you use one strand, you get a very thin and delicate line. When you take more and more strands, so your line is getting thicker and thicker. The stitch looks different with a different number of strands. Now let's practice. Thread your needle with 3 strands. Bring the needle up through the fabric at your starting point along the edge or the outline of the shape you are stitching. Insert the needle back into the fabric a short distance away at the opposite edge. Bring the needle back up through the fabric at the edge, directly above where you inserted it, catching the working thread under the needle to form a loop. Pull the needle through to tighten the loop, ensuring the loop forms a neat right-angle corner with a vertical stitch. Insert the needle again a short distance from the last stitch. Bring the needle back up through the fabric at the edge, catching the thread under the needle to form the next loop. Pull through and tighten. Repeat this process, spacing your stitches evenly and keeping them the same length. Here are some tips for a perfect blanket stitch. First, it's spacing and consistency. Keep your stitches evenly spaced and the same length for a uniform appearance. Next one, it's a thread tension. Maintain even tension to avoid puckering or loose loops. Pull the thread firmly but gently after each stitch. At the end, insert the needle into the fabric and secure the thread with a knot and cut the thread. Well, at the second line, we repeat the same steps as before. Bring the needle up at the starting point and then insert the needle back a short distance away at the opposite edge. Then bring the needle back up through the fabric at the edge directly above where you inserted in. Catch the working thread under the needle and form a loop. Pull the needle through to tighten the loop, ensuring the loop forms a neat right angle corner with the vertical stitch. Then insert the needle again a short distance from the last stitch. Bring the needle back up through the fabric, catch the thread under the needle and form next and next loops. Pull through and tighten. At the end, we secure our line with a small stitch and make a secure knot at the back. Now, thread your needle with 2 strands, and I propose you to practice creating the blanket stitch, but from another side. Well, the steps are the same. Please remember that your stitches should be evenly spaced and the same length. Then they will have a uniform appearance. And the third line. Here I propose you to experiment with length. Now let's practice creating stitches of different length in one line. Well, now let's talk about applications of the blanket stitch. First, it's edging blankets and quilts. This stitch provides a neat decorative finish to the edges. Next, it's applique work. Secures fabric shapes onto a base fabric while adding a decorative border. Next, decorative borders. Enhances the edges of fabric projects like table linens, clothing, and accessories. Now let's see how to change the thread which is over. Thread the needle with the same number of strands as your previous thread. Bring the new needle up through the fabric. Insert the first needle into the fabric. And then, without pulling, make a secure knot and cut a short thread. Then come back to the second needle and continue working with this needle and this thread. Now let's continue talking about applications of the blanket stitch. Well, this stitch can be used also in floral embroidering, for example, for creating flowers, leaves, and other floral motifs. Thread your needle with 3 strands and let's start embroidering. While working, please remember the main rules of the blanket stitch. It's keeping the stitches evenly spaced and the same length. Also, the thread tension is very important. Maintain even tension to avoid puckering or loose loops. You should pull the thread firmly but gently. When you stitch a circle, it's very important to use guidelines and points. Well, our circle is almost ready. The last stitch, and let's finish it by creating a small stitch. Then secure your thread and cut the thread. Now let's try to create a flower using the blanket stitch. We thread our needle with 2 strands, and now we are working in a circle. Here we don't have any points, so it's a good opportunity to train your skills of spacing. The blanket stitch can be creatively adapted to embroider beautiful floral designs. This technique adds a charming texture look to your embroidered flowers. Use different shades of floss for a more dynamic and realistic look. Gradients and contrasting colors can add depth to your flowers. Well, let's secure the thread, and now I propose you to create a center using French knots. What a good job! See you at the next lesson!